Thank you so much for joining us for quick beginnings of career planning as an educator. I just want to introduce myself and then I'm going to have you introduce herself. My name is Dr. Drew Hines. I work here in the School of Education. I've had a checkered past. I started out my career as an elementary school teacher and quickly moved into a district office tech coordinator role and then to an IT director job and was a grant funded coordinator for a while, worked at the State Department for 6 years, and then back to a school administrator and an IT director. So I've just had a lot of different roles, and it's been a blessing. I get this opportunity to be able to think about kids and learning in different ways, and it's just been an opportunity. So I teach the foundations class and some leadership class in the graduate or in the general education leader group here at Point Loma. I wanted to make sure that we made this available for a few of us. So we're going to kind of try to generalize the statements and the suggestions so that we can use it in multiple classes. And I'm going to just talk briefly about Point Loma has a graduate school of education. You can get your undergrad at EDU. You can get a single subject at Point Loma. We work hard as a smaller school to give you a smaller experience and really encourage you to be the best educator you can be, whatever you want to try your hand at. So whether it be special education or administrative track, multiple subjects or secondary, we've got a group for you.
So hi everyone, my name is Evie. I am a PLNU alum post-grad. I worked doing talent acquisition coordinating. And in that, I realized that I love supporting others, especially when they are looking for jobs or looking for career development. In that role, I realized I'm such an extrovert and I love being in front of people. And this role specifically was fully remote. And I found myself to just not be happy or satisfied enough. And so I got myself a job at Point Loma, working now as a program manager for our department at Career Services. And this has been by far the most fulfilling job. It's where my strengths get to thrive and I'm able to have my extroverted heart just be super happy in this role. And I get to give back and support students, which falls in line with my passion of supporting others. And so that's a little bit about myself. And I just want to reiterate that your career journey could look very different and it's not always linear, but that doesn't mean that it's wrong, and that everything that you have under your belt as experience is going to help you, and there's always something to learn. So have that growth mentality and keep at it. Two things I want to cover today. We've got personal branding and LinkedIn, and then we're going to cover job search in a bit. Here are some questions that you can start asking yourself as you are working through your professional documents or even your LinkedIn profile accounts. Have you ever Googled yourself? And if so, what did you find? And were you surprised by any of the results? As you are starting to build your personal brand, I want you to be thinking about these facts in mind. 66% of recruiters are Googling their candidates before inviting them for an interview. That means whatever you have out there is already part of your personal brand, whether you like it or not. So be cautious of what you do post online. Also have the things that you're most proud of be at the very top by posting regularly on LinkedIn. 75% of people who recently changed jobs were using LinkedIn to inform their career decision. And that's why I'm so excited to teach you about how to leverage LinkedIn, because it's such a great tool for you to stay up to date as to what the industry knowledge is or what people in your field are doing and learning from them in that way. When I talk about personal branding, I am talking about the intentional and strategic practice of defining and also expressing your value. This could be through any written medium or anything that's digital. The purpose of creating your personal brand and really refining it is, one, to increase your visibility, to better network and get opportunities. The third, it's great for self-discovery and expression. It helps you uncover and also celebrate what you bring to the table in terms of strengths. So as you are starting to build your personal brand, I want you to be thinking about these different components of it. So the first is find your purpose. This is where you're going to sit with yourself and analyze what you think is part of your goals, your values, and also what makes you unique. Then I want you to assess your current brand. So what is your reputation currently? What are your connections that you can leverage now? And then what are the experiences that you have Another thing, once you kind of dive into yourself, is really starting to craft that story. So reflect on experiences, your transferable skills, and also your strengths. Once you've crafted your story, you know a little bit more about yourself, you're able to then communicate and also live that brand out. And you can do this by sharing your brand through events, social media like LinkedIn, or even career conversations that you're having with mentors, with people in your industry, or even with your peers. And you want to get others to share your brand as much as possible. So find people and connect over shared interests, whether that's in person or through LinkedIn. And then lastly, get feedback as much as possible. I think I've learned the most from my 90-day reviews at different jobs or from asking my mentors on a walk and just getting insight as to what I bring to the table or some weaknesses that I can work on or how I'm carrying myself. And I did want to ask your professor or even Heather, who's supporting today, if they had any insight to share specifically within building their own personal brand.
As I have moved from a teacher to a leadership role and different roles along the way, I tend to prune my resource tree, I would say. As I built relationships and friends, I may actually retract or eliminate some groups of that depending upon what I want to focus on. So in my case, I went highly technical. So I went from like really a teaching voice and occupation to a technical side. And as I did that, I just went through my contacts in LinkedIn, and I choose to use Instagram and Facebook as kind of a quasi professional place. So I'm not going to post super personal stuff because I assume that whatever I post can be on the front page of the newspaper as a leader. So I'm always super careful. LinkedIn is where I choose to spend a little bit more time expanding professionally. And there's a good book called Digital Selling Handbook, and then also this the Ed Branding book that's education specific by Brant and White. It's called the Ed Branding Book, How to Build Educational Leadership with Social Influence. And it kind of talks about the use of different social media tools for different purposes. And I'm interested to, well, the first thing you could do is go find somebody you've been working with and search to see if they're on LinkedIn. And make sure that your picture is professional, because that picture is probably going to stick with you for a while.
When I went into teaching 10 years ago, mine was paper resume and, your networking of people you know. But when I applied for my position that I have in a different school district a couple years ago, I used the LinkedIn and I networked through going to events in my community, which was using different resources outside of things that I have used in the past.
I think of it like a bonsai tree. It's growing and you just kind of prune it on one side, and this side starts to kind of pop up and grow, and these other areas are still there as a structure, but maybe that's not what you're focused on right now.
Moving on, I wanted to give you a little bit of like what would be specific to your field. So when you are thinking about whether it's your resume, your cover letter, your LinkedIn, your elevator pitch, you want to highlight your teaching philosophy all the way across. So craft that, refine it as much as possible, tailor it when you need to, but then be consistent across that different content. And then showcase your classroom readiness. This is something that's unique to your field. So you can either post a brief reflection or a classroom experience that you've had on LinkedIn, and then include any certification. So whether you've done any sort of training as part of your program, or if you paid for something outside of, please put that on here because it's a great place that you can help advocate for yourself. Moving on, I want to talk about LinkedIn. Whether you're familiar with this platform or just learning about it, I want to go over what it is. It's a professional networking platform, and it's designed to connect professionals, employers, and job seekers. Three main purposes of using LinkedIn account and why it makes sense to spend the time creating one or refining one is it's great for professional networking where you can connect with your classmates or professors, industry experts, and employers. Connect with your peers because that is where your network starts. It's not like Instagram where if you send a request, it's kind of like this awkward interaction because everybody knows that if you're on LinkedIn, it's for professional networking purposes. And so be bold in your request. If you've gone to networking events or any type of events where you've met other people, feel free to add them. Let's say that you want to work for a specific charter school, or you want to work for or with somebody on this team. They might not be hiring right now, but they could be in 6 months or a year or in a few weeks, or they might know of a friend who's hiring, or they just might have insight that would be really beneficial to you in your journey. It's also a great tool for showcasing your personal branding. I like to think of your LinkedIn profile as a digital version of your resume and then also your cover letter. There's a section where you can have a summary where you can elaborate a little bit about what you're doing now, where you see yourself in the future, where your passions lie. And then lastly, you can find amazing opportunities through their job search function, or you can even be matched with a recruiter that sees your profile and says, "This is a great person, I would love to connect with them." With leveraging LinkedIn, I want you to focus on really investing your time in these 3 buckets. So developing your profile, growing connections, and investing in your network. When you first make your profile, it's usually like your first, your last name, and then tangent of numbers. It doesn't look as professional to have that on your resume or your CV. And so I always like to tell students that they can customize it. This works like an Instagram handle where you're gonna have to be unique if you have a more common name. And make sure that you complete your profile. I feel like a lot of students get started on it, but then they forget that they can add more sections to it, or they started converting their resume into their experience section on LinkedIn, but they forgot to input the bullet points. And so just make sure that you're completing it all the way through. Build your network, join relevant groups on there, follow target companies, and then invest in your network. So engage with the people that are on there regularly. Utilize the alumni network to your advantage. And I'll kind of walk you through what that looks like doing a demo. The last component that you can focus on is having career conversations. This is like a checklist that you should be looking over when you're looking at your profile. So the first is you should have a clear profile picture. It doesn't have to be taken by a professional. You can have your roommate take it as long as it's clear, it doesn't have anything that's too distracting, and it's a blurred background. If you are needing a headshot, I take them for students on campus. You can email me and I'll work with your schedule to take that headshot for you. As you're looking through your LinkedIn profile, you need a headline, the about section, experience, education, and then there's a couple additional sections that you can add for fun, like the skills, endorsements, and recommendations. In addition to having a professional headshot, I want you to be thinking about creating a headline that is specific to your field, but also beneficial for you as you're growing your network. This could be as simple as what you're studying now, and then what you see yourself in the future as, or what you're doing now, and then other keywords that highlight your passions, or maybe the things that you bring to the table. For me, I have my current title, which is program manager, and then career advisor, people-centered innovator, and then champion of empathy, as well as lifelong learner. Those are keywords that are specific to me. I'm not looking for jobs, so it's a little bit more of what I'm doing now. For a student that just graduated, like Jillian, she has Bachelor of Arts in Psychology. She's a behavioral technician currently, and she's aspiring to be a school psychologist. Following your headline, you're going to have your about section. Think of this as your professional summary. So this is where you can break it up into 3 little subsections: what you're doing now, your passions, and what you're studying, and how your experience connects to your long-term goals. And this could look different in different seasons of your life. Following that, you'll have your experience section. This is essentially just a copy of your resume or your CV that's digitized. So you'll see that at the very top, you'll have your role, and then you can have your bullet points describing the different responsibilities that you had, the projects you worked on, or the impact that you left within that role. At the very bottom, you'll have your education. Here, I would take advantage if you have any awards, if you're doing a minor, if you're taking any additional classes, or if you have a high standing GPA. This is where you can know all of that. The last section I want to talk about is using the skills, endorsements, and recommendations portion of LinkedIn. This helps build credibility for people that don't know you as well, or stumbling upon your profile. If you have letters of recommendation, you can directly copy it onto your profile. So for example, I wrote a letter of recommendation for one of our students, Kellen Gonzalez, and so she was able to upload it, and that helped build credibility onto her page. In addition to that, when you have your skills sections all written out, you can ask either your professors, your friends, other peers to endorse them. So let's say that I have public speaking on my skills portion. I want to make sure that that's endorsed by multiple people, so that if I'm applying to a job, they can see that It's not just me saying I'm equipped to public speak, but that there's other people backing that statement for me. Additional sections you can add to leverage LinkedIn is activities, any licenses, certifications, first aid certified or anything else. If you want to add a specific section to separate your work experience from your volunteer experience, you can do that as well. Honors and awards, any organizations or interests. As you are working through your resume and your LinkedIn, have all of those bullet points under each experience section as a strong impact statement. This means we're starting with a strong action verb like analyzed, collaborated, led, and then you're describing the project, whether that's the responsibilities, the problems you had to solve, or the goal you were working towards. And the last component that students miss the most, but is the most important, is the results or the impact. I want you to be using impact statements and using this formula. Here's an example of what a shortened bullet point could look like, and then what it looks like to be an impact statement. Instead of saying tutored biology students, you can quantify your experience and make it more impactful and comprehensive of what you brought to the table or your skills by saying tutored 15 biology students weekly in subjects such as organic chemistry and anatomy, providing individualized assistance and accommodations for students with disabilities. At a quick glance, the first one is just brief, but it's not comprehensive of what you did, what transferable skills you have. Second example does showcase that impact that you had. Here's another tip that it's education specific. In your skills section, I would encourage you to include both soft and hard skills, whether that's classroom management, conflict resolution, or if it's a hard skill like Google Classroom or IEPs. Other recommendations, I encourage you to ask your mentors, your professors, anyone else you've worked with for a letter of recommendation, even if it's just a short blurb. Last thing I want to focus on is the alumni network. This is a great tool that you have. What you're going to do is type in our school, click on our school, click alumni. We have 24,000 alumni that are connected on here. Let's say that you want to have a career conversation because you're looking for jobs and preparing for postgrad. A way that you can do this is by typing in a specific either a major, a school you want to work for, or somebody that you know in the past. So let's say that you want to work for a specific school like
San Diego Unified School District. That's probably the largest employer in San Diego.
So then what you could see is that we have 75 alumni that have reported working there, whether that's in the past or currently. And then it tells you where they work, just some general information. Any of these individuals that have that as part of their LinkedIn profile. You do have to do a little bit of research, but this is a great tool that you can leverage to have more of those career conversations and hear from alumni or people within this field.
It's interesting, as educators, we oftentimes build our network from those closest to us. So, the neighbor, and then you kind of expand from there to a conference or an organization. What I'll actually do is I'll mine ahead of time some of the people I anticipate I'm going to see. It's a pretty intentional activity for me, but I think of people as currency.
As you're making these connections, make sure that you're investing in yourself, investing in these interactions, and then following up. So get to know yourself, do your research, and then take action. This means reaching out, volunteering, attending different events. Be yourself, be personable, and ask to see if you can connect with another person they might know. And then follow up. So if they do meet with you and have a career conversation, or if you do connect with them at a conference, make sure that you're following up and staying engaged and nurturing that relationship as you go. If you need any templates for reaching out and having a conversation, we have an entire library of templates that you can customize on our website. So best practices for personal branding and LinkedIn: define and communicate your personal brand, build and maintain a strong online presence, use the LinkedIn alumni tool and join relevant groups, be proactive and engage, and then be strategic in your outreach. It takes roughly 3 to 6 months to find a job, so don't be discouraged. Be prepared to have it take a little bit longer. 70% of employers are offering full-time positions to their interns, so try to establish the interest. People don't know to give you an opportunity unless they know that you're interested. The last one, 80% of job openings are filled through personal networking connections. To our previous point, it's all about who you know. Only 20% of jobs are found through cold applying. A lot of you are going to be pursuing and jumping straight into your career, and this is a long-term professional journey that's built on passion, skills, and advancement. It's important to be strategic in your job search because it's going to be using your time effectively and your resources. Being a full-time student and entering the workforce is a lot, and applications take a really long time, or the interview process can be extensive. So make sure that you're focusing on quality instead of quantity in terms of applications. It's great to feel empowered and to feel confidence in knowing what employers are looking for and then adjusting either your materials for that or preparing better for it. Just know that the job market is dynamic and that these skills will last your entire career. So how can you best leverage them? And then how can you best communicate that to an employer? This is the job search process. It could look a little different and it might not be as linear, but it typically starts with doing that self-assessment and that research, your skills, your interests, values, and then doing research on those specific jobs. One thing I recommend is having a job tracker. We have one on our website, and then build and maintain those relationships. And then you want to make sure that you are crafting a tailored version of your materials for every single job that you're applying for. Submit it in a timely manner. Prepare then for the interview by researching the company, the role, and also practicing some of those interview questions you might be asked. The most common one is going to be, tell us about yourself. So really getting that down to a minute or 2 minutes is going to be essential. And lastly, when you do get a job offer, make sure that you're evaluating if it's in line with your long-term goals. When you are applying for a job, you want to focus on these 3 buckets. The first is yourself, the second is the job, the third is the organization. So when you're getting to know yourself, think about your experiences, what makes you unique, what's going to make you stand out amongst other candidates, and then how are your interests, your passions, and goals aligning with the specific job or the specific school. When you're thinking about the job, where can you apply your specific experience, and then how are your skills transferable to their specific needs on their team? What makes you a good fit? The last is the organization. So what challenges do they address, specifically working with students? And then how do your goals align with what they're doing? And what professional development opportunities exist within that organization or that school? Looking for jobs and applying, focus on quality versus quantity. Narrow your search and be selective. Make sure that you're researching, customizing, and also networking before even applying. I want to talk about job satisfaction factors, and I wish that I would have known about this as I navigated my jobs post-grad. A job is not going to be completely perfect. There's going to be aspects of the job or the responsibilities that you have that you really enjoy, and there's going to be other factors that might necessarily not be ideal, but you have to be thinking of what makes sense for you in this season and what you're willing to have or compromise on. For example, post-grad was just looking for a job to pay my rent. Also, I wanted something that was flexible and something that was going to be stable, knowing that I graduated in the middle of a pandemic. With that, I had those job satisfaction factors, but I didn't realize how much having strong relationships and having purpose for my work valued to me until I found myself a year into that role and I just wasn't happy. Ultimately, I realized that I need to be in a place where I have purpose, where I can build strong relationships, and it's not fully remote. I need that human interaction, and I still need that flexibility and job security. So it's important to kind of keep these in mind.
Yeah, I think as a teacher starts their career, a lot of times you're just motivated by the intersection of learning with kids. And if that isn't your jam, education, there's a lot of factors that are going to be frustrating. At the end of the day, you've got to enjoy being around kids. And for me, that was super motivating. Started out as a business major, and one of my professors actually took me aside and said, I think you'd be a good teacher. Try this out and see if the field experience works out. And man, third grade classroom, I fell in love with the intersection of learning and kids in that environment. Not that I didn't know that about myself already from coaching and experiencing some of that, but boy, I understood at that point that some of these things were going to be happiness factors for me. This is a great list: work-life balance, flexibility, culture and values at work, and that can change between schools.
Yeah,
The wonderful
sure.
thing about education is you can work for a charter school that has a lot of autonomy and a lot of innovation that occurs, and then you could work at a public traditional high school and have 7 periods a day and 4 preps. So like there's a lot of options for you to explore just within the career of education as a teacher. If you are that teacher that's thinking about a single subject PE, consider picking up an endorsement, at least a language learner or reading endorsement or something else that fills out, distinguishes you from the pack. You're going to have an easier way about it. Unless you're a STEM teacher, there's a website called EdJoin. It's a great tool. It's edjoin.org, and you can search by region. There's job postings for job fairs. So the nice thing about here is you can search by region or by classified certified or licensed, and by county. A lot of schools or districts will post on EdJoin and link to their job posting page because they know so many applicants start with EdJoin.
So this is our website, peelingviewcareerservices.com. The main tab I recommend for students is just the resource tab. So with this, we were specifically talking about job search, right? We click on job search, we're able to see quick videos that we vetted through, articles and tools for students to read through. And then the last thing is platforms, Indeed, Handshake, LinkedIn. In addition to that, we have edjoin.org. I wanted to also point you to the job application tracker. To keep something as a log is really helpful, at least for me, in organizing all of that. So I have the job titles, the status, the company, the application link, the due dates, everything that you might need is on here. In addition to that, if you are working on your LinkedIn page, we have an entire profile checklist that will walk you through every single one of those sections and what they need. If you are preparing to reach out to somebody, we have templates for you to use. This is all going to be on here for you to adapt. As you are starting to investigate and network with people and have these career conversations, think about what kind of wisdom can I gain from this? How can I also invest in these individuals and these relationships that I have? And how can I leverage these job platforms? These are more general, so I'm going to skip over them. Lastly, for job search, you want to network strategically, tailor each application as much as possible. On Indeed and Handshake, there might be some postings that are outdated. Confirm the job opening is still there. And that's all that I have today.
And this has been great. I think if I was a teacher right now, I'd be really lucky, first of all, to just have some of the context of the happiness context, places to go to find and apply for a job, and some strategies on putting together your cover letter, your resume. A lot of times, teachers and administrators, as they apply for positions in California specifically, you have to include all of your past positions, every job, state department, county office that you've held. You have to provide that. And I think that's for background checks. So the other thing that's a tip here is they require a letter of recommendation, and they have to be signed with usually the role or how you're related to that person. And also it has to have a professional header, like the company header at the top. And so those three things are necessary in all of your letters of recommendation or personal letter reference. That's the other one. I think this is great. Evie, thank you so much for joining us tonight.